We're live.
Yo, yo, yo. Word up to my replay folks out on the interwebs. I just learned about that term yesterday, so I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, another
I don't know that term. Can you enlighten me?
I think it was Evan told me that a lot of people start their broadcasts with like hello replays, like talking to the future audience who will be replaying it later. Thought that was funny. Some spillover from the TikTok crowd. Yeah, I don't have too much on the agenda, but I did thought we could go through. I realized like there are a few just things that we came up with. I was going through like our old town halls and like I was like, oh yeah, we talked about this and we talked about that. And I thought I'd follow up on those things, but also curious just to go around and maybe people can just like popcorn throw out any topics that they're curious about, like either like status of Re-Public or things that you wanted to have addressed today. Phil, do you want to just throw out anything? You don't have to have anything.
Hello replays. I don't think no, I think we could just discuss more in depth with Ivan, the BeatNoom use case. I think that's what could be interesting for today. Other than that, I'm open.
Yeah, I have like a very simple scheme. I was thinking like about BeatNoom from like user perspective, like as for those who gonna be like registering or like basically something that will split people. Actually, can I share my screen? Do you mind me sharing my screen?
Go ahead.
No, go for it. And while you do that, Eric or John, anything that you wanted to get in today?
Yeah, I wanted to mention like at the at our last Journo DAO town hall, the last couple of weeks we've been talking a little bit about trying to get some actual journalism projects going, some like decentralized citizen journalism type projects. And one thing that we discussed would be something possibly tied to Re-Public that I was kind of inspired by Sumit when he was talking about, basically like doing some sort of quest to like walk people through the process of, taking more ownership of their data and like, how do you do that and what's involved? And then like, what does that mean and what are the benefits of it? I think that's actually some pretty interesting, stories could come of that. And so it'd be kind of interesting to try to put together some sort of an initiative where people around the world that are like into this and want to like learn more about data sovereignty and like how practically to implement that in their lives, just to kind of share their stories of trying to figure out how to do that and some of the obstacles and benefits. So like I personally would be really interested in like the Strava example and just like kind of showing like, as a reporter and a writer, like what it takes to take ownership of a lot of that data and like what is an alternative like BeatNoom look like, and yeah, just kind of stories from the field of data autonomy, I suppose.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Would you I guess it would be weird. I don't know if you could pitch it as like Re-Public specific, but you would need to like, we could point you at like other projects and stuff, and just I'm happy to help advise on the stuff that I went through when I was trying to figure out exactly like nuts and bolts, how do I take control of all this. But yeah, that
like if I were to write like a story for like Forbes, it would probably be like like Republic would feature as like, you know, one of the main players in this movement, and there would have to be some disclosure of you know, the fact that I know more than the average person about your bathroom habits. But
That
yeah,
specific disclosure, yeah. I think that's what the Forbes would want to say.
Seems like there's an interest for this type of story. Wall Street Journal came out with a story this week on like initiatives where people can take control of their data. It's paywalled, so I didn't get to read it, but seems like there's some interest for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll put that on. We can talk about just what to tackle first, but John, was there anything from your end that you were hoping to cover?
Not specifically. I mean, the recording for the DiGiorno series, I think went really well. Yes, on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks of it. And Ivan, I don't think you know about this. If Phil, do you know about this? We're doing a mini series, and I'm one of the founders of Crypto Sapiens podcast as well. And we're doing a decentralized journalism mini series. And so this week we covered the episode 1, which was the foundations, the fundamentals of Web3 and journalism and what that's all about. And then this next week we'll be covering tooling, and then the week after is censorship, and then after that is funding and public goods, and focusing specifically on those aspects of it. So I would like to have some kind of Re-Public representation, specifically for the tooling episode, if possible. So Keith, I think you said you'd be on there. Everybody else here is welcome to go on there as well. So yeah, talking about data ownership and how journalists can use a platform like Re-Public to possibly upload their works to. I don't know how it could be incorporated, but that's what the show's about.
I didn't know about it, John. Thanks for sharing.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll send the link. I need to set up the studio for next week today, actually. So I'll send the link, and it's Wednesday at 11 Central Time, which is 9 Pacific, noon Eastern Time, US.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that'd be exciting. And maybe we can talk about the details of that later. I have like some questions about how we can like best tailor it to like the journalism aspect of things.
Yeah.
I could easily be talking about like Bitnum from like user perspective. I don't know how it really connects. Whoop.
Oh, feedback.
How it connects to journalism, but it connects to kind of data ownership from a user perspective. Again, I'm probably the only not data person here. Feel a bit stupid all the time, but then still, if you need me talking about like something from like basically my pain point of like not being the owner of my sports stuff, I can contribute.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Bitnum collects data from a bunch of different types of platforms like Garmin and Suunto and Apple Watch.
Yes.
How would that apply for journalism? What types of different journalism platforms would be churning out data in different formats to be aggregated?
Well, one of the aspects of why Bitnum collects data from few resources is making sure that this data is correct. So the more sources you have, the more accurate the data is. Well, same with journalism, the more areas you get the information from, the more, the more genuine it is. I think it's works this way. It's just top of my mind.
Yeah, like confirming something
Yeah.
happen from multiple sources, which usually are like people, but in Republic's world are going to be, you know, devices and like data sources. Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. But let's use that to go into Beatnum and hear more about that, and maybe that'll inform that conversation later.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Tell me when you can see that. This is my favorite. This is my favorite. Like on all calls, like tell me when you can see my screen. So
Yeah, yeah.
helpful. So
So-
sorry for the quality of the graphics. Even if I'm a designer, this again, I just want to state like once again, and I will be talking about this a bit too much. I'm not a data person. I don't know how this all works. I try to see the Bitnum and Re-Public's kind of link from the user perspective, because we're going to be meeting users that are going to be interested in just a solution, like basically lots of people like sport enthusiasts or data enthusiasts, and we need to kind of sort them somehow. So basically there's we can't predict who is coming our way, and we have basically the main hook for Bitnum is going to be like the sports and data, and how, you know, what's the main issue that other platforms aren't solving. So basically we'll end up at the, okay, let's call it Bitnum platform that says, okay, there is a problem. You know, you're not the owner of your data, of your sports results at the moment. We have the idea that this should be stored in a more secure way, with a, you know, with the 100% being sure that this data is not going anywhere. And this is how we do it. And then basically this is where we told we use Re-Public as the kind of a source, as a technology that stores your data. And at this point, people are going to be split. Okay, I'm interested in registering and as a sports enthusiast and basically going for the service, and register and go for using like as a Chrome extension to collect your data, and then basically store it on Re-Public, or use the web interface as a kind of a dashboard where you can see and share your data with others. Or you are interested in data collection and how you use it. Basically, these are like data enthusiasts, and they go to they're split from Bitnum to Re-Public, and this is where they, you know, they can go and read about Re-Public website, or use the mobile app you've kind of started building already that we all see. So this structure, because I was thinking like, you know, from many angles on that, and if you, let's say, make it data first and not the kind of the problem first, we're gonna kind of not see the main mass of the people who are just there for sports results, and they just want to kind of put this in stone, their results, and store it forever. We need to kind of give the solution for everyone, and for everyone we need to explain this is the problem you're facing now, or we all kind of have, if you are in any way connected to sport, but also this is how it works. So basically we show the kind of the classical trio, which is like the problem, the idea, and solution. So the problem is we meet people with the problem that you are not the owner of the data. The idea, we decide to store all your data, and you have the possibility to store all your data forever in a secure place. And the solution is the Re-Public. And if you're interested in the solution, you go to Re-Public separate, or it's going to be incorporated in a Bitnum information. Like basically it could be like a white paper on the Bitnum website, or a redirection to Re-Public, where you just made like a landing page where it explains how the solution works in any level of depth. Like you can go like very kind of high end, this is basically our solution, or you can be very specific for data enthusiasts, or you go, I just want to, you know, collect my data and make it, you know, secure, make it there forever, and this is my dashboard, and I can share and flex it on my social media and just go there and see what are my results. You basically take the path which is the kind of the Bitnum path. So I try not to split Bitnum and Re-Public too much. I just want them to be like Bitnum powered by Re-Public or made by Re-Public or whatever we want to say. I just want it to be like one solid thing, but also for everyone.
Yeah.
So sorry for the design again, but this is
No,
this beautiful. I'll send this screenshot afterwards.
No,
So
it
we can
always
see.
helps to have like something visual to bounce off of. And
As the sorry, once again, I just want to say,
Okay.
as the final product, I see from a the kind of the mass market perspective, I see it as a Chrome extension for that data collection and like transferring it to Re-Public app and a web interface. I try to imagine it as a standalone application. I just don't see the need for the actual app to see your data and to collect it, to connect. I think web interface is much easier here. It's gonna be so simple.
Mhm. So people would go to the Beatnoom website to see the dashboard, though, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
So
The web-
so when you
okay.
basically before you register, you see the Bitnum as the kind of as the split section, like basically a use case scenario. This is the problem. This is our solution, and this is our how we do it. Basically, Re-Public, and then you can go and read about Re-Public or participate in the data collection, or you register, and then after you register, the Bitnum website becomes just your dashboard and with the with explanation how you download your MetaMask or you download your Chrome extension, and where you can see on the website where you can see all your data and how you can share it or use it in any other way. Hope it is simple.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, like if Beatnoom was coming along to like after Re-Public was like fully realized, Beatnoom might not even have to or want to mention Re-Public at all. It would be like mentioning that you're running on like AWS or like just some provider that's not necessarily interesting. And so like from my perspective, I think you should only feel the need to mention Re-Public as much as like your users like would find that helpful or useful as far as like investigating, how you actually do this. But I would be totally fine, I think, with just Beatnoom doesn't even have to mention Re-Public, but if they want to, they can. And then on Re-Public side, we'll have Beatnoom in like our app store.
But that's the whole, that's the whole reason to believe for Bitnum user to see something, I would say, for usual person unconventional, instead of just like, okay, all your data is going to be on, I don't know, Google Drive. This is not a reason to believe. Basically, I'm pretty sure you can go on Strava and read how the data is collected and where it is stored. It's probably somewhere secure, but the only thing is it's centralized, and then the ownership of your data is Strava's. And what we offer is you, the owner of the data. And we need to explain how. I mean, if we could use Re-Public as a solution, that would be great, because this is like I don't know, it sounds fresh.
Keith,
AWS.
I do feel though that for Re-Public, there's an opportunity to develop a sort of branding there as a trusted provider, because there's no incentive for a company to mention AWS because it's just like the boring, centralized, I know I have no control over my data option.
Web 2, I mean,
exactly.
100% Web 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So then as Re-Public, I do think though that there's some value in there as like showcasing ourselves as that alternative, and on the long run being that trusted brand for having control, or like that trusted data management service.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to build that brand. but since we don't have it, like,
Yeah.
now I would just, the only reason I'm bringing this up is I don't want to, Ivan, for you to feel saddled with like any like partnership need or like obligation to mention it. So I'm totally down with you, making it as much a part of Beatnum as you want. I'm just saying, like,
No,
from our
it needs
perspective,
it needs this base level to build trust. Even if the explanation is going to be very basic, it
Mhm.
needs a solution, because we need like to fill the how section. This is the problem. Everybody says, okay, we understand what's the issue is. We need to own the data. We need to give how as well. If you just say, okay, we just store it on cloud, people say, well, I mean, I just make a screenshot and put it on my Google Drive. It's different. We basically need to bring this Web3 kind of vibe in it.
Mhm.
So, sounds very professional,
Yeah, no, I'm down.
very technical.
But like, just hypothetically, if as you're doing more like user research and stuff, and people are like, this whole mention of like Re-Public is confusing because like it's this other service and whatever, and you find that it would just be simpler to just explain it in your own terms so that your users understand, like, I think you should feel free to do that if you don't already. So that's just my only point.
Yeah, well, again, I would want to use Re-Public not just as a service, but as a reason to believe as well.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, yeah, that makes sense to me.
I'll send the screenshot in Discord if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. Did you end up getting that? I think I DM'd you that I'm not sure if I DM'd you the final diagram though.
No,
Okay, I'll send that over to you.
and my notifications on Discord don't work for some reason. I don't understand why.
Yeah, what's the best platform to kind of reach you at? I know you try not to check emails very often, but should we just keep?
Well, I use Telegram, but Discord is the best. Like,
Okay.
DM in Discord is the best.
Okay.
Emails is like probably the worst thing to.
Okay. Yeah, it's like my phone. Like, there's so much spam on there that like even when somebody legitimate calls me, it's just like I'll listen to the message maybe, but and then call them back. But I just never answer my phone.
Keith, I forgot to mention, maybe like this is like valuable in the discussion with Beatnum. We discussed Perkeep quickly, I think last week. Do you think that Perkeep could be a useful tool for developing that behind the scenes infrastructure for Beatnum?
Yeah, so the role that Perkeep, or there's a few other players in the space, the role that they play is just like the handling the logic of taking your single like archive of data. Like right now we have stuff on our computer, we have stuff on our phone, we have stuff like all over the place. We have stuff on like random devices that like we used for a year and then like forgot about, put in the closet. We like super fracture right now, but like hypothetically, if and when you get your arms around all that data, if you had like one single bucket to put it in, like how do you go about storing that permanently, that's like platform agnostic, so that like you have all your data on Google Drive and then Google goes out of business or says they're not going to do Drive anymore or whatever, then what do you do? Well, you want to be able to like move it to a different backend like very easily. And so that's all like very complex like technical logic. And so there's but a lot of people are seeing that like that's like the need. And so Perkeep was a Google employee, started it, worked on it for like 8 years. I just DM'd him on Twitter and he says he might be assembling like a group at his current like an internal team in his current job because they have a need for it to like work on it again. And so as part of that, I think, you know, that would just be like the storage rails for Re-Public. So like anything that you dump into like your Re-Public repository, like on the back end, we'd like give you the option of like which backend you want to choose. Like, do you want Google Drive, you want Dropbox, you want whatever. But then Perkeep would be the thing that actually was like, okay, you dumped it in your archive from your phone, so I gotta, and then like it has data that kind of conflicts with something you put from your laptop on there, and so like the conflict resolution and storage of that is like complex so that you can't so you don't lose any data, right? And so like, for example, Perkeep, just you don't actually delete anything. It's just like you just add stuff, and then the relationships between things change as they sync up. And so am I making sense so far? Is this too technical? Or and so I think people are eventually going to want to know how all this stuff happens, but I think initially it's our job to like absorb the complexity and then spit out like a very simple utility and user experience, but then have like the answer. I want to choose like the good tools on the back end to have the answer if, you know, the hypothesis is like in 5 or 10 years people are going to actually start caring about this, and you want to be able to tell them that you're doing the right thing like from the start. And so if we can use something like that and it's robust enough and it's you know, good enough for production at scale, then that would just save a huge amount of development time. And because there's all this like, then you want to like share this chunk of data with this person, but not like the rest of your data, right? You want selective disclosure to different parties. And so these platforms, Perkeep and like web native file storage and a few others that I mentioned, most of them try and handle that like temporary key handoff where there's like a time windowed key where like you can access this data for like this amount of time, and then but it's like revocable and all that stuff, kind of like what Streamer does for their data platform. But Streamer's just doesn't have like the long-term storage, and they're just in like the real-time distribution of data. So yeah, I asked Streamer about like the long-term storage stuff early on because I was concerned about this earlier, and since that wasn't really what they were concerned with, I haven't really revisited it until now, but it's always been on my mind. And I've tried a few things personally, just like, okay, how would I do this for myself? Like, what tools should I use? And I still wasn't able to get like my arms around like everything that I wanted to. And even then, like the workflow is still like very fractured. So this was, I think, where Re-Public comes in and just makes it super easy, so that people don't have to like worry about what's going on behind the scenes. But if they do, like they, you know, they understand like that it's never out of their control. And then that's the permanent part of it, is the ability. I think you can only get permanence right now with the ability to kind of upgrade or transfer to like new formats and new platforms, because, you know, it's impossible to guess like now which formats and standards are going to be around in 100 years, if any. And so if you can just automate the moving and like the migrating and upgrading of, you know, removing the concept of like your entire data archive from the specifics of the technology that stores it or expresses it at that moment in time, then you can continually like swap out the pieces of the supporting architecture, but you kind of have this immutable data blob or whatever that you just know, you just keep throwing stuff in there, and then where it's at, like, and the infrastructure may like change and swap around, but like, you know, you can always access it with this key, and you can always interact with it in the same way, no matter like what the particulars are. And that's kind of like another value out of having something like Re-Public, is like a consistent interface for your data, no matter where it's stored or what's going on behind the scenes.
Thanks, Keith. I think I'll do more homework on per key, but I find it interesting to understand more what's going on technically.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. Like, it's pretty rare that I was watching the talk and I was just like, oh yeah, that's like the right way to do it. Oh, these these guys are really smart, and like I would never come up with that, but I can tell like that's the right way to do it. And I just really like the model that they have, where it's like very elegant. There's not a lot of like pieces to it. It's just kind of, I mean, there are like relative to the problem, like they've taken a very complex problem and made it a lot simpler. Yeah, so we can,
Do you want to jump to the next point?
yeah. Eric, do you want to chat about the story ideas that you had, or did you just go someplace where you can't jump in?
I mean, I think there's probably still more discussion about like what the structure would look like, and just kind of like on like how the reporting would take place. But I think like we were on the right track when Sumit was talking about just like thinking about ways to, you know, put these concepts basically in front of people, and you know, put out there like different ways that people can begin to take ownership of this stuff, and kind of like the basic, I guess, just the basic concepts. And like I like what he was doing with just, you know, showing what is available, like that you can just get from Strava. That might be like, well, I mean, you would know like what are like when you begin to like explain this to people, like where do you usually start? Like what are some of the examples that you start with?
You mean like just data sovereignty in general, or like specific to the like athletic data?
No, just in general.
Well, I don't have a one-size-fits-all solution, because everyone has their own entry point, but pretty much whatever they're interested in is like an entry point to this. So it's like for Ivan, it was you know, personal bests, and like where do those live, and really just pick any piece of digital or any data that somebody like works with on a daily basis, and then ask them what happens if that business shuts down. Like, and where that goes. Or have you ever lost any data? Like, was there ever like a cool device that you were using that is not around anymore? Like what was the Microsoft the Zune or whatever? Like, I don't know, I just kind of go through a list of like things and figure out what resonates with people. I don't know if there's like one that we can find that's like a good kickoff point.
Yeah, so I mean, like that makes me think like if there were like a handful of those like entry points that like everyday people could understand. I think the Strava is one. When we were at ONA and at that Web3 roundtable, there were a few people who were there who were journalists who like they just kept asking the same question over and over again, and they were very concerned. It was like they had just come to the realization that they didn't own their Facebook and Instagram data. And this one person in particular was a journalist and had just tons and tons of content on those platforms, and was just like, how do I use Web3? How do I use blockchain to get ownership of this? And I was like, well, I mean, that's a long story.
Yeah.
And but like,
Come
so
with me on that journey. We'll go together.
yeah, right. So like, I think that like she was very motivated. And so I think that is, you know, just the basic social media content is another one. And then maybe if there were, yeah, like, I don't know, you're like smart home data might be another one.
Mhm.
What's another one that comes up? Like, what would be a few more that come up most frequently, or that it would be most easily to digest, you think?
Well, they'll have different flavors to it. Like some people were really upset about like the Ring doorbell being offered as surveillance to like police to like investigate crime / just surveil neighborhoods. Some people were, I mean, every day, like there's like that thing that I just tweeted out this morning of, you know, people in Texas suing over the biometric collection by Google. So, I mean, and the lines kind of blur between like preserving what you have and then abuse of what you have by the
Right.
companies. And so like putting on my editor hat, like I could see like a story opening on like one of the, do you remember like, was it circles or Google groups or
Or the Google Plus thing?
yeah, so like Google is kind of like a gold mine for these like tragic stories of data loss, right? Like where
Yeah.
people because people got really passionate about some of their apps, like they were considered duds or whatever, but they all had like their passionate adopters. Like Wave was one. Like they have so many like cool things, right? That like just not enough people thought they were cool. So it's like, oh, this is embarrassment. It's like failure. And like, and so like telling the human story, I think behind like a group that got kicked off of that, wasn't able to like preserve their data and like actually had like data that would still be valuable today or something in some respect. That's what makes me think of. But
So I'm seeing like kind of maybe 4 buckets kind of starting to emerge to begin. There's like basically like personal health and fitness stuff, social media, like smart home type stuff, and then like Google's like kind of its own category almost between like what you're talking about. I mean, Gmail honestly is its own category. There's some like horrifying implications I'm trying to work through right now with getting stuff off of Gmail, off of Google. But so maybe that's a good starting point to just kind of start to conceptualize how like a project could move forward.
I think photos specifically are one that like everyone can identify with, and note like a lot of people, if not most people, have taken like digital photos at this point, and I think very few of those people have any sort of strategy for like long-term control and preservation of those photos. Like most people have like probably lost a good portion of their photos, or they don't know how to like access them anymore. So are you thinking of like guinea pigging yourself for like a more of a first person thing, or like what are you?
Hopefully not, because it'll take longer.
Yeah.
Because I won't have the bandwidth, but just in terms of like kind of trying to put out some, you know, specific cases to just like kind of describe what we're looking for, in like looking for potential contributors and citizen journalists to contribute to this project. I think being able to be like, you know, here's half a dozen examples of things that you might not know about, things that you might want to be thinking about, and things that you might want to take action on. And then you can start to share that experience with us.
Aaron, there's one case that like that annoyed me. I've been like an early Spotify user, and back in the days you could send messages to people on Spotify. I mean, like I'm a music nerd, so my friends and I, we used to send each other tons of music on there. But then that feature was deprecated, and I don't know those conversations. I can't access them anymore.
Huh,
Yeah.
I never used, I've had Spotify like since the beginning too, and I've like never, that like friend, I'm looking at it right now, that like friend thing is on the side. I like just always ignore it.
Yes,
I don't
for quite some time you had like a message option there. But then I guess the feature, I think I remember reading at some point like the feature was not used much. And they deprecated it, and then I don't know, all my cool music conversations disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, I lost some interesting data when oh man, there's like a pretty big like Apple Music competitor around the early days when Spotify was around. It had like that blue
Tidal?
icon. No, it was before Tidal, but anyway, I just had a really good UX, and it had a bigger library for Apple Music for a while, and so, but they just got gobbled up and just disappeared, and who knows like what's on there. So yeah, music, I think music would be an interesting one too, especially like going back to like Napster days, and like most of my like when I was trying to preserve all of my data, it was mostly just like MP3s, and there was like trying to negotiate, at these various points in my life when I bought a new computer, and like use this for all the music, and I tried to take it from the computer before, and like all this stuff, and so I had duplicates all over, and just almost a terabyte of like music. It was just a nightmare, and I think a lot of people had to become like amateur data archivists just to keep their music library around until we moved to streaming services.
And even now with streaming services, like I've got all my liked songs on Spotify, but if I create another account, there's no way for me to keep them as liked songs in my new account. I can't export that anywhere else. I'm really dependent to that specific account, which I hate because I created it. I logged in. I signed up with Facebook back then. So now I'm stuck. Every time I want to I log out, log back in, I have to go and reactivate my Facebook, then sign in, then deactivate my Facebook.
Yeah. Well, Eric, so forgot to mention, maybe you should talk about like the decentralized nature of how you want to go about sourcing like these stories or collections of stories or personal experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I talk about figuring out how to actually structure it, that's more what I was referring to. But I mean, I think the idea in my mind is playing with the idea of basically a DAO as a decentralized newsroom and news organization. So it would be, yeah, basically, kind of requesting contributions of probably all sorts from all comers, and then figuring out how to bring whatever we get into a comprehensive story or package of some sort, and hopefully along the way doing some education, teaching folks some basic journalism, and teaching folks who already have those skills some basics of Web3 type stuff. So yeah, that's why I was saying it'd be better if this is actually not me doing it, but like more of an actual experiment in decentralized reporting, which is what Journal DAO is more about. And this is all just something we've been talking about, like, and mostly me talking about it in the last couple of weeks. So this is all just like ideas and rants on Zoom calls. So there's not a lot of like, we're not ready to hit the ground running on this, but more ideas.
So would a decentralized, I guess, newsroom be able to use like some kind of common Web3 accessed type of database that everybody could have access to, and that like Republic would be able to have it make it device agnostic? And then so anytime anybody accessed it and used that data, it would go on the blockchain? Like as far as stuff for the news stories, like photos, text, stuff like that. And anything that is published or gathered for the purpose of writing articles could be uploaded to this database and then registered on the blockchain.
I mean, yeah, I think this is kind of a perfect opportunity to test out, like, okay, let's test out, let's upload some stuff for this project. Let's try Arweave, let's try IPFS, and just kind of use this project as a sandbox to try out all that stuff.
Yeah, so if like you're doing a piece on like traffic at like some major construction highway project that's like it's like investigative, and the budget is like super high, so you're investigating possible corruption, right? And you have to upload photos and documents supporting that. Then that would be in a folder and then be coming from a bunch of different devices, and Re-Public would be kind of an app that would help to sort that out to make all those, devices kind of talk to each other. And then anytime anything was added or subtracted or altered in that folder, then it would be registered. Like traceability, right? I'm just trying to think of a real world practical case.
You're
Keith,
muted.
you're muted.
Yeah, so in the Republic like thesis so far, that would be very individual focused, right? Like the like if you're crowdsourcing photos and reports, like that stuff would first go into that individual's archive, and then they would grant like permissions to the projects to access that under certain terms, rather than, and this is up for debate, but like currently in like the Republic vision and world, there wouldn't be any concept of like a shared data repo, where first before anything else happens, the data goes into that like shared space. It's like it would always go with to the individual's like archive first, and then any shared space would then like be permissioned to access like many different individuals' archive.
Okay, so like all the data that I've gathered, photos, court cases, articles, receipts, I could put in my own archive, and then I could offer that to the data marketplace, either for sale or for free access via some kind of cryptocurrency exchange or an NFT unlock type of access or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And so I guess like that would just be the reporting project would just be another app in the Re-Public app store that you could be like, oh, send my data to this reporting project. And then these are the terms of use for the reporting project. This is the type of data they're looking for. You have this, you don't have this, you have this, you don't have this. Do you want?
Yeah, so any other news organization or reporter that wants to do a similar story or use that information for their spin on it, then they would be paying the piper for it.
Yeah, they'd have to come to you.
There could be an app on Re-Public that's basically like the Web3 equivalent of like WikiLeaks, basically, where it's like you have like whistleblower information and you just want to throw it out there. You could throw it in that app.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're doing the muted thing.
And then using like, sorry, and then using like zero knowledge proofs, it could be an anonymous way to sell that data and actually get paid for like the WikiLeaks style, you know, yeah, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, nobody would have to know unless they could track it to that particular wallet address. But yeah, and zero knowledge proofs don't even allow you to track it to a particular wallet address in a lot of cases because it's cloaked.
Mhm. And I think from the Republic perspective, like, I don't think we want to develop the zero knowledge proof, like the big brain stuff. We just want to make that usable for people to actually take advantage of. They don't even need to know that it's like zero knowledge unless they really want to know how it works or whatever.
Well, leave it to me to be like take down the man type of stuff, but you know.
Yeah. No, I'm all about that, but it's doing it in a way that just is like nobody even realizes it's happening, because all they're doing is like acting in their own best interest, using, you know, tools that provide value to them, and then all of a sudden a bunch of parasitic, you know, industries just can't operate anymore. Well, that was a good segue into like what we could talk about on the podcast, maybe.
Yeah, we should write that down as far as, you know, possible ways to transmit data while still owning it to other parties who would be interested in using that data as a journalist, you know.
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like my impression of how journalists would view this, there would be like a conceptual shift from, oh, the place I'm working for owns my work product, to, oh, I own it and I might have like multiple buyers and users of it, like in perpetuity.
Yeah, I mean, well, freelancers would get it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's and it opens all kinds of interesting questions in terms of like, at what point in the reporting process would you post this somewhere where it is on a publicly accessible blockchain? That would be a huge conceptual leap for a lot of folks, because like, particularly if you're like talking about anonymous sources, which then like, yeah, the ZK stuff becomes a possible solution there.
I got a question for you, Eric. At what point does the organization that a journalist is working for own that data if they're not freelance?
It depends on your contract. Like I literally have, I'm not supposed to talk about this, but I have you could figure out what places I'm talking about, but the ownership for different places that I contribute to is actually completely different. So like you can have arrangements where it's basically work for hire, and so everything I produce for a story that ends up on one outlet, like they own everything. I think they can even request my notes. That's never happened, but I think yeah, I've had some contract negotiations that they don't really go in my favor, whereas other places, there's simply licensing, like running my work one time, and there's like some exclusivity, and then I own everything. So like I could actually take that story and sell it someplace else, and they could publish it verbatim somewhere else, and I would have the right to do that. Now, very few places are going to do that because they don't want to publish something that's already been published somewhere else. But it's, I mean, I've had stories I've had people who write textbooks want to republish my stories, and it depends where it was published, whether or not I actually can grant that.
Mm. You can also do like time windowed, like some people do, like, 7-day exclusivity window or something, where like
Mhm.
your story can be published here, and then after that 7 days or whatever, then you can sell it, wherever.
So that's like a scoop guarantee, like a breaking guarantee, breaking news guarantee type of thing.
Well, they
Mhm.
just know that like in the current news climate, and that is actually the arrangement I'm talking about. I think that's it exactly, 7-day exclusivity worldwide. And they just know that like with the current, like the way the news cycle works, like almost every story, its value is like basically gone after a week in terms of its ability to generate traffic and advertising and revenue.
Mhm. Just think of the treasure troves that we can unlock by letting journalists kind of take control of their archives if they do have those contracts.
Well, it would flip the journalism industry on its head if suddenly every journalist, like that would flip the business model of how companies hire journalists as well. If you just were paying for the labor of the journalist writing the article and the station or the outlet didn't own any of that data, like how would that completely, I mean, yeah.
I mean, one aspect of that is there's one there's one outlet I write for that if I want to get sued, I want it to be that outlet, because the other outlet, I'm on my own.
Right. I mean, in the world of Republic, I'm not sure that we talked about being like opinionated in one way or the other, or we did talk about this like on the not opinionated side, but like you can still have like bad contracts, right? Like theoretically these contracts can still exist, but Republic's just providing like the way for you to do it a different way, which doesn't exist right now, where it goes to you first, and then you can do what you want with it from like a technical perspective, like you actually control that and you have a way to do that. Where like right now, if freelancers who want to do that have to be like super organized and pretty technical and like their own data archivists, and they have to like be like a paralegal as well, because they have to like figure out what all their contracts are at every place, what they can and can't do. And so what, all the content in their archive is going to be like under different terms. And so then just getting to that point where you actually know the lay of the land is difficult, but then moving from that point to then finding the people who are interested in the stuff that is actually open for you to share and profit from is like, that's the hard part, especially with this current business model. I have a feeling that wouldn't be hard in the journalism futures that we're talking about, but we're just not there yet. That's not a priority for people.
But it seems like journalists though are interested in like having control over their data, because you look at who's running the current organizations. Like I think about Pool, like the CEO Shiv was a journalist for The Guardian. I think Marlene from Data Union DAO was also a journalist. So there's so many journalists involved in this space. I feel like it's maybe because you've like felt the consequences of that lack of control and like the change in business model due to the internet. There's some sort of correlation.
Yeah, and I think the absolute loss of your data. Oh, we're at the hour, but like actually just completely losing a story that you worked on because you didn't save it, and then like the content management system of the place that it ran like migrates or they shut down or something. Like I think that's happened to a lot of people too, when it's like I don't think anything I wrote was like I would ever want to go back and read it, because I'd probably think it was terrible, but I would like to just like have it, like somewhere that I could search, and like a lot of the stuff I did for Wired is just not there. It's all mangled and cut up with other things, and I just can't even be bothered to go back and try and like pull clippings out of here. Well, maybe we can end it there. I know, John, you're off to Crypto Sapiens.
Yeah, actually, this meeting being pushed an hour before, it works great because I have an hour buffer time, but I do have to finish getting this podcast edited before I go to the meeting here. So.
I do want to hear your 60-second summary of what you're thinking for the Journo DAO pod, though.
Oh, for this, if not for the Crypto Sapiens one, right?
Oh no, Keith put that. Oh, is that what you meant? Was that what you're referring to? The Crypto Sapiens?
Yeah.
One? Oh, gotcha. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, after we finish the mini series, now that I'm establishing a workflow for this podcast, I would like to have some kind of weekly show going for Journo DAO, and different people can host it. Different people can, be guests, different type of topics or whatever, I mean, I'll take the lead and keep it going if nobody's available. But yeah, I'd like to see a variety of faces, doing this. And now that I'll have the workflow established, and then I can give you guys access to the StreamYard studio. Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And fun.
Yep. Definitely fun.
Yeah.
All right. I got to hit it.
All right.
All right. Later, y'all.
Yeah.
Bye. Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.